In the global village of conflicting ideologies and complexities, understanding systems and schemes through awareness and social reconstruction becomes expedient.
They never told you how you offended them?
I'm not on trial, so I can't go before.
Join the radio man, Edmond Obilo, on State Affairs for local and international politics, security, extensive economic analysis, interviews, and world power play.
Nigerians must choose the path they want to follow. Follow the same looters and sponsors of violence who control the political structures or encourage the formation of a new leadership team.
Be a global citizen and join the radio revolution on State Affairs. State Affairs with Edmond Obilo. Radio just got deeper. State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
You see far into the future.
Oh yes, by the grace of God.
How come you have not helped to rescue Nigeria?
Well, you are going to a very delicate aspect of each country's existence. In overseas, especially Britain, where I studied the spiritual line, they have illuminated people who guide the country right from the inner planes. For example, in society which I belong to, the Society of the Inner Light, where I studied, they have what is known as the occult police, quite different from the physical police.
What does the occult police do?
Occult police go to the astral plane of their country to make sure evil forces don't have access into their physical plane.
So these occult police are protecting, these occult police?
They are protecting their country.
Protecting their country?
Yes.
Nigeria does not have an occult police.
You don't have.
What do we have?
You have physical police.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
He was a great man. And like he confided in the late Chief Bolaige, who embarrassed me by disclosing at public meetings twice that Papa Awolowo told him was one of his closest confidants in Nigeria, and that was the truth. We will talk for 5 hours. He loved me, and we talk and talk. That man had a clue that will have made Nigeria be like an America now, and he analyzed it to me, how it will raise our currency level, massively embark on production, and people will be like they do for America, keep their dollar, borrow it all over the world, all over the world. That's what he planned. That's what some of the soldiers grabbed from his Apapa residence. They thought they would use it, they couldn't use it. That was a great man. That was a great man, a man of knowledge. Oh, there are traces of Awolowo people didn't know. But we talk and talk, and I challenge him. And he said something to me. When I gave him the synopsis of my book, Black Man Dilemma, he took 4 days to read it, and we started to debate. After he has read it, You know what Chief Awolowo told me?
What did he tell you?
He said what I wrote in Black Man's Dilemma. He had been thinking of it for 20 years. And on one occasion, when he went by Concorde, the flight with the highest speed on earth, he asked his wife, Mama Segun, in Yoruba, do you think it's the same God who created us and these people? With the speed of this plane, we are drinking, we are moving about, we didn't feel anything. He said he has always been bothered about it. But his own solution was that Papa Awolowo, he told me, he said it's education that has made the difference between us and the rest of the world. I, to an extent, I agree with him, but there are other factors that made us to be who we are, the black man. He said this education, and he gave an analogy. I didn't mention his name in the book, but he's the one who told me. He said he believes so much in the power of education. He said if we had a way, he said we didn't know how many were Nigerians then. Let's even assume then that we are 80 million. If there's a system or a way where they can carry all of us to America and put us in the best places in the United States, and where they can bring Americans from different parts of that country and put them in the arid, semi-desert areas, very backward, very bad areas of our country. He said in 10 years, these areas we think are very backward and bad will become like paradise. And our people in America, in the best places in New York, we will not be able to maintain the skyscrapers. Cockroaches will be flying. People may throw refuse in Hudson Bay. He said he believed that the Americans, if they didn't bring anything to this country, and they will kneel down in the arid areas, and they will kneel down and say, God, you made us to make America what it was. Please, we want to turn this place into a paradise.
Here we go.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live. Stay tuned.
Your Excellencies, Your Highnesses, ladies and gentlemen, a few events in my life have given me so much pleasure as to come before you tonight to open formally the first television network in Africa. Western Nigeria television is already being emulated by other parts of this country as well as in a number of other African states. I know that you will all gain much from this great medium of mass information and instruction. It is a powerful influence for good. And I am confident that in due course, it will assist in making our great country even greater. Very soon, we and our partners will introduce commercial radio to Nigeria. And we have made careful plans that this medium too will be used for your benefit. With these few remarks, I have great pleasure in formally launching Western Nigeria television first in Africa. I ask you all to rejoice with my colleagues and me on this memorable occasion and to grasp with both hands the full advantages which this modern miracle offers.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo. is live.
Since the creation of the world, both good and evil have been slugging it out to overcome each other. But by the grace of God, good always prevails.
I am thinking that you had no cause to be afraid that Awolowo was going to be assassinated.
That was the message revealed to me. If a thing is revealed to you and you don't shout or call attention to it, then you'll be guilty of negligence.
The reason I'm taking that position
Yes.
is linked to the response of Oduduwa to God on the quest by Awolowo to come to earth.
Yeah.
Oduduwa says, wherever he goes in life, there I shall be with him.
Yes.
He is going to assist me in my unfinished business.
Yes.
Whoever shall be his enemy shall be my enemy. The four corners of the world shall not produce any harmony in such enemies, and they shall always end up in ruins. He shall have a wife who will be like a mother to him.
Yes.
So from the response of Oduduwa,
Yes.
Awolowo is safe. There's no cause for alarm. So why did Chief Omoleye raise an alarm?
What you must realize is that coming to the world, you are bound to encounter challenges. This is one of the reasons why people study spiritual line, to assist them to face challenges in the world. If you want to be a leader, you must prepare yourself for leadership. But that does not mean evil cannot overcome you. Doesn't mean evil cannot overcome you. Even among people who rose up through Awolowo, he had enemies among them.
Some of them betrayed him.
Oh yes, like Judas betrayed Christ. So it doesn't mean the fact that you have cosmic backing does not mean you won't face challenges.
But from the cosmic realization,
Yes.
it is clear that when you are sent on a mission, you are educated on the challenges you will meet.
Well.
I should presume. Chief Omoleye, you said in your revelation here that there are few avatars that come to earth to change the situation. And you said that the divine spark of Awolowo is not of the ordinary type.
Oh yes.
He belongs to the spark called salt of the word.
Oh. Look, it's the same thing I'm telling you. You must face challenges. Look at Mahatma Gandhi. He too was an avatar. What happened to him after he had helped India? He was assassinated. There is no way you can live in the world without having the evil forces operating.
Was that what happened to Jesus?
The same thing.
He was an avatar.
Yes,
So
he was even a god, according to Christianity.
Perhaps avatars are always meant to be betrayed, killed.
Oh yes, so that if they have any religion left behind, people can take to it, can take to that religion.
So avatars somehow die painful deaths, right?
Well,
They're always taken out.
Oh yes.
Taken out by the mysteries of the
Oh
world.
yes, humanity don't want light in their midst. They want to live in darkness.
Here we go.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live. Stay tuned.
I want you to tell me, were you among those that were sent to Ghana to topple the Tafawa Balewa government?
Not a big depression. We went to Ghana to study Nkrumah's form of organization, the CPP. You know, they were the ruling party down there. as an organizing secretary, we went there. That was what happened. There was no question of calling there to come and topple anybody.
But
that was the allegation when they wanted to get rid of the opposition.
Was there a plan to remove Tafawa Balewa?
We are only opposed to Buhari government. There's no plan to remove him democratically.
There was no plot
I don't.
to remove him forcefully.
I don't know about any plot to remove him forcefully. But I know we are doing everything just the way APC are trying to remove Jonathan.
Sam Ikoku was part of the AG.
Yes.
He was an Awolowo man.
Yes.
So listen to what he said.
Yes.
He said, we were fed up with the way the Nigerian system, the Nigerian state, and the Nigerian government were operating. We were deeply committed to a change of government, and we saw that waiting for elections would not produce any solution to the problem. This was what we did. We started preparations for it, and the preparations had gone very far, and I believe we would have pulled it off. But unfortunately for us, our leader was so kind to the Nigerian police that he had a police informant among his planners, and so the police knew every move we were making, and so it was easy to trip us up. Our leader even became the number 2 citizen in the country. I felt it was time to tell the country the truth, so that our history would be correct. So all I'm saying is that, yes, there was an attempt to overthrow the government. Yes, I took part in the attempt. Yes, it failed, thanks to people like MD Yusuf and co. Chief Adebanjo, what do you have to say?
That's his view. That's not my view. That's SG Koku talking, not Adebanjo.
A member of the AG.
Look, during the Chisdebo Fellow Day, late Professor Obafemi gave evidence that he was a member of the planning committee to school. But when he was questioned at the trial, that's another matter.
You ran away. You did not come to the country during that treason trial, right?
Yes.
Why did you run away?
I didn't run away. I will give you the background. By the time they were arresting people for, after we left the rally for detention, it was Awolowo who said we should not allow all of us to be arrested here, and that he was not going to leave the country. But there must be people who will be championing our cause abroad, telling what is happening at home. That was how myself and Ikuku were sent abroad, not because we ran away.
Ikuku was in Ghana too?
Yeah, he was my leader in Ghana.
So if Ikuku accepted this, why did he choose to accept?
Unfortunately, you should have asked him.
I thought you were going to confirm the story.
No,
the reason I came to you with this book.
I've had it before. You are not embarrassing me. It's not new to me. If you knew what transpired after later between Chief Awolowo and SG Kuku, when it was described as Awolowo gave a sense to somebody who is perfidious. There must be a reason for it. You see, those of our group with Awolowo, are you listening? There are so many people in this country that when we remember what the role they played, we shake our head. After all, and Awolowo was with us. But later on, what did he do? He went with the opposition. So many reasons for many people changing their view when the blow is hot. If you remember, at a certain stage, before Awolowo was incarcerated, when Balewa started their opposition on us, they shock number 1 for Awolowo, shock number 2 for Awolowo. Those were the time when she wrote to William and others were resigning from the action group. Almost every day, leading members of the party, those whom the leader built up. So on that, and on occasion, all those we knew, Awolowo knew were in the periphery of the party. He summoned the party in Ikene and expelled all of them. So there will be no question of anybody shock number one, shock number two. All those we knew that are not steady, we expelled them at that time. So it is not strange.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
Let's look back to 1955, the 17th of January, when Awolowo launched free education in the western part of Nigeria.
Well, first of all, I can talk about this. I wasn't a direct beneficiary, but I was 1954 in Standard 5. We were to finish in Standard 6 because the region was moving from 8-year primary to 6 years. We had to take the same examination as those in Standard 6, and I was lucky to come out. And the following year came what they call the secondary modern school, which absorbed the battalion of those who couldn't go to the main secondary school, a 3-year course, which I'm the beneficiary of. Luckily, I didn't continue to any formal primary or secondary again till I came to study in this university. So in that case, I'll be a beneficiary. But I lived through it, and I've written about it. First of all, Awolowo had a vision. He had lived through this society. He had been self-educated up to BCom, the degree of BCom. And he knew what change opportunities for education will make in people. And he also knew the value of what we now call basic education, which is not just a question of years, but a question of what you got in it. He also knew that he needed the people. And you could see it took a long time in planning, because it has to be a consultative process. Because planning is not a question of writing something on a piece of paper. That is a document. The real plan is in the minds of people. And I could remember the type of jingles. Free education school in the Western region, register, and the Yoruba version of that. So before it ever came, people were ready.
It was a movement.
Yes. And remember, it was also people-oriented.
He discussed with the people.
Not only that, I'll take one example. One result of free primary was an upsurge in number of people ready for secondary education. And 1955 witnessed the expansion of secondary education in Western Nigeria. And it was mainly community efforts. So we live in the city of Ibadan. Loyola College, 1973. Yejide Grammar School, 1976. Ibadan High School, 1955. St. Patrick's, 1955. Lagelu, 1955. These were all community. Sometimes the churches and Muslim faiths follow them. But imagine what the situation could have been if you didn't have those. And you go from place to place. I later found myself teaching in Omo Grammar School, Origbo Community High School in Ife, Ikpetumodu, and so on. It was because you were doing with the people that the people also, on their own accord, started their own secondary schools. And the secondary schools then were not, you needed community effort before government granted approval. When I taught in Origbo community, the first 4 years, everything was community-based, self-financing, if you like. And the 4th year, we were inspected by government. And when you say inspection, they will watch every teacher teach. They watch the equipment, the services, and all that. Then, when you got that approval, government gave you some grant, but they never gave you the entirety of what you requested for. The rest was called assumed local contribution. And it was after government approval that WAEC came again to inspect. And that's why most of those schools spend 6 years to get a school certificate instead of 5. And why it could make you 5 years if you showed progress. So you can see it's a combination of so many things. But we learned a few lessons from that. We still have in this country, and we've had it since independence, the question of data drought. We don't know how many people we have. And so, the primary education, January 1955, was overtaken because we didn't know that.
Awolowo made a point that only society.
And that's what society has always done, whether you were living in 1800 or 100 BC. Those who've emerged as leaders, those who've changed the course of history, are only those whose minds have been transformed through education.
That Awolowo made that venture, how would you describe his mind?
He had a vision. He has been through hardship. He had acquired education the hard way, and he knew what the benefits were. And he also knew that you have to lay a solid foundation. And that was what he tried to do, using the limited means at the time. And most importantly, he carried the people along. And it had its impact on Western Nigeria. The challenge today is to go back and inject quality into the good work, the good foundation that Awolowo laid.
Do you think there can be democracy without people that are educated?
There cannot be. There will be chaos instead. People will follow you up like any sheep of goats, but they will not make any change, and you yourself will not grow because you think you know everything.
Is Nigeria chaotic?
I think that's what it is. You came through a traffic jam today. Is that not chaotic?
Is it because we are not educated enough?
We are not educated. Well, many people have been to school, but the number is not even enough. And those who've been to school have been through school, but the school has not been through them.
We need education revolution.
We need societal change, attitudinal and value orientation, all true. And as I said earlier, this is a question of the egg and the hen again. And where do you start? Where do you start? And I think in this case, we need it to be led by a government, because that's where governance comes in. That is, what do we need to get along in this society? But education, I agree with you, but we're not saying schooling. We mean education in the true sense of the term. Whether you are in school, out of school, young, adult, old, how can we change your mindset and your value orientation?
Professor Banya, more than 10 million Nigerian children are out of school.
Mm-hmm.
Does that strike fear into you?
First of all, you see, I know about this. I've followed it over the years. But you see, we are not tackling the problem. Where are these people located? They are not located in Nkalagu, and they are not located in Egbado or Yawa department. They are located in specific parts of this federation.
Are you talking about the northern part?
Well, wherever it is, they are also located in the slums of our various cities. They are located among the poorest of the poor in wherever we are. So, first of all, please, you do solve the problems of education outside the education sector as well. Raising people living standards is also another way of changing so many things. And everything you do for health impacts on education. What you do for agriculture impacts on education. What you do for communication, road transport, everything impacts on education. So what we should be doing, one, go to each locality and do a problem 3 analysis. What is the root cause of this in this locality?
Is it not poverty?
Well, let's be sure. And you can only do that when you are working with the people. With the people. With the people.
Do we need to generate good data?
Of course, data drought is our number one problem. A country that doesn't know its population. You know, all this you're quoting, the problem of our data is this. For years, when you saw the education data, Nigeria will be listed as N/D, no data. Later, it became latest year available. So if you are publishing African Educational Report for 2018, the data for Nigeria will be 1988. Now, what we have is multiple source data, UNESCO data, UNICEF data, World Bank data. We don't have Nigeria-generated data.
Here we go.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. Dr. Festus Adedayo is my guest on Voices. Voices is the state of the nation. This pervasive hold of hegemony on the thought process of the people.
Yes.
Is it in the interest of society?
I told you it could be negative, it could be positive. The Western region was lucky because the pervasive hold on the mental process of the people eventually translated into positive development for them.
Don't forget Operation Waitier.
Yes.
The Tribune was an instrument.
Yes, I think the Tribune was also a counter-hegemonic force. As I told you earlier, Akintola was also, leading a political group of its own. It was using the Daily Sketch. And, of course, there was hegemonic battle and counter-hegemonic battle. Ultimately, you will say that it was not desirable for Yoruba land. But at the end of the day, I'm looking at the output for Yoruba people. Perhaps we could have gone further than this if the battle was not as intense. Because you had in SL Akintola, even if you read through Awolowo's book, it described Akintola as one of the most articulate. He said he was capable of arguing same issue from different ends of the perspectives. He was a polemicist. And such brand of leadership was literally incinerated in Yoruba land. If somebody like Awolowo had worked hand in hand with SL Akintola, the FRA Williams, the Akinola Maja, the Shoni Barres, Eso Gbadamosi, and all that, I'm sure the Southwest would have been far better than this.
But from what I can get from your work here, what these men did was to use the media to control self-presentation and manage visibility.
Yes.
It was in their own advantage.
Yes, I think it started off by, presenting as their advantage. But ultimately, it became the advantage of the southwest part of Nigeria.
But it divided the Southwest. It divided the Yoruba nation.
It divided Yoruba nation. And indeed, some scholars have said that, don't forget that 1962 to 1966, which I brand as a chapter in my work as a year of political turmoil, was the year that the bulk of this chaos actually happened. And it's also led to the 1966 takeover of government in Nigeria. Of course, the federal government also had Daily Times. Daily Times was in support of Akintola. Daily Times was attacking Awolowo, as Daily Times and Sketch were attacking Awolowo and his political group. The Tribune was also a counter-hegemonic weapon, and it was also attacking them and presenting Awolowo as the most desirable leader, and his brand of leadership the most desirable for the Southwest.
You said in this your very incisive PhD thesis entitled The Nigerian Tribune and Hegemonic Politics in Nigeria, 1949 to 1992, that the role played by the Tribune bred a press or whose views were indistinguishable from politicians. You said this is not a commendable path for journalism.
I think with the benefit of hindsight, as I told you earlier, not the Tribune alone. I've mentioned an array of newspapers of the First Republic who acted as a theater of war in the collapse of that First Republic. It's as you said, that work is incisive. I spent 10 years on that PhD work, on the research, and I gathered so many materials from Egbe Omodudua's bulletin. I went to the archives. I researched the Tribune from 1949 to 1992, as you said. I think that right now, the role that the newspaper press played at that moment generally cannot be said to be desirable. And of course, it included the Nigerian Tribune, the Daily Express. And don't forget that at some point, Daily Express was edited by S.L. Akintola, and it was eventually edited by Jack Conde, while Onabanjo was editing, the Daily Service rather, while Onabanjo was editing the Express. So it's a combination of these actors on the media scene. The editors also didn't play, editors of all the newspaper press that were available at that time also didn't play a commendable aspect of their roles. Their roles were not too commendable because I'm sure nobody can use the kind of language that they used against that. For instance, there was Mbono Ojike had a column in the West African Pilot. He was an acolyte of Nnamdi Azikiwe, and he was writing Weekend Catechism. That was the title of the column. And at some point, he was reviewing the book written by Chief Obafemi Awolowo. And he said that Awolowo was an agent of imperialism, that he was an ethnic stooge. And of course, such descriptions, you wonder if it was still the same Awolowo who ended up administering a Western region that was seen as a model for other regions. So I wouldn't really single out the Tribune in that theater. It was a combine. It was a connivance. And the role that the media played at that time was not totally desirable. And of course, it also continued in the Second Republic. Easily did the Tribune, for instance, substitute Shehu Shagari for S.L. Akintola. And of course, when Concord also came to the theater, it started lampooning Chief Obafemi Awolowo. And of course, the Tribune did not also spare Concord and MK Abiola, and they said he was an agent of the CIA. There was a particular headline that when you read that headline, you shudder, saying that the CIA had planted MK Abiola in Nigeria with his fabulous wealth and all that. So it was a theater. And I'm sure, I quite agree with scholars who say that the press, the newspaper press especially, of the First and Second Republic are implicated in the collapse of the two republics.
Dr. Festus Adedayo, thank you for featuring on Voices.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Dr. Festus Adedayo is the author of the thesis, The Nigerian Tribune and Hegemonic Politics in Nigeria. Dr. Adedayo is a former chairman editorial board of the National Life newspaper.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
This pervasive hold of hegemony on the thought process of the people,
Yes.
is it in the interest of society?
I told you it could be negative, it could be positive. The Western region was lucky because the pervasive hold on the mental process of the people eventually translated into positive development for them.
Here we go.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live. Stay tuned.
I do not believe that Awolowo failed in his project. By the time he died, everything he wanted by way of social objectives and directive principles became the Nigerian Constitution. That is to say, his book, Thoughts on Nigerian Constitution, is the only book that made the 1979 Constitution possible. Anybody who wants to dispute it can show me whatever any other Nigerian said before 1979 that could have influenced all the principles in the 79 Constitution. The only things that are wrong in the 79 Constitution were things they refused to add from Thoughts on Nigerian Constitution. Anybody who wishes to debate it is free and should bring it all out. Before 1966, most of those ideas were simply anathema in very many Nigerian circles. And in any case, we were not all federalists. Awolowo turned Nigeria into a federal society. In fact, some of my Igbo friends who have been responding from the standpoint of the losers of the Civil War have argued that Awolowo single-handedly forced Nigeria to become a federal society, and that federalism wasn't it, but unitarism wasn't it. Now, if Nigeria is to survive, we all agree it will come from observing a federal ideal. But let me put it very, very bluntly. Awolowo actually did not mean to become president of Nigeria. The truth is that the battle Awolowo fought, there's no way he could have lived to be, even if he lived to be 100, but by the time he died, he was already too old to fight like a young man. But even if he had 2 lifetimes, he would not have done anything different from what his ideas proposed. What you and I ought to be asking ourselves is, why haven't we been able to realize the ideas that Awolowo considered the right ways of running a proper society? It is a better question than why did Awolowo not win? Because to say that Awolowo was not pragmatic is actually to argue that we supported him and he did not get what he wanted. We did not support Awolowo. It was only when we started running from one problem to the other that the rest of us started scratching our heads and saying, Awolowo once said, this is the... Awolowo was supposed to form coalitions with. We are people who did not believe in many of these ideas. Should we have loved Awolowo if he threw away those ideas just in order to be in power? Take a look at Tinubu today. He's a very sorry sight. We are all pretending that he's done a marvelous deed. In the follow-up to that book, I am arguing that he did a wonderful job of building that coalition. But it was a coalition without content, neither helpful to the north nor helpful to the southwest. If we are a serious people, we should insist that when such coalitions are to be formed, they should be formed in favor of Nigeria's future. As I said, Buhari is not working for the poor of the north, and he's not working for the poor of Nigeria. And because he's not doing that, he will soon discover that he's not working for the rich on both sides. Because he has no economic program, in my view, that makes sense in terms of the problems that we need to solve. The kind of coalitions that destroy what we regard as the right answer are better left dead than worked at. It was good that in 1952, Awolowo and the North could not come together. Why? Because Awolowo was democratizing local governments in the Western region. And the Northerners, the NPC people who came to hold a meeting with him in Badamosi's house in Ikorodu, simply could not see why their own emirs would be weeded out of centrality in the way that Awolowo was reducing the powers of the traditional rulers in the Southwest. That was one. If you have watched the pattern of northern Nigerian politics, both the rightists and the leftists opposed free education. Awolowo explained it very simply. He said, one of the reasons they were opposed to free education was that if education was made free, more money would be spent in the South than in the North because there were more children at school in the South than in the North. And he said, if it is true that the population of the North is actually more than the population of the South of Nigeria, it will mean that at the beginning, it is true, at the beginning of free education, more money could be spent in the South. But over a period of 5 years, when all the children should have been at school, so much more money will be spent in the North if there are actually more children in the North. But some people, most of their people down because it helps them to create the lopsided structure that puts Nigeria where it is. One of the great reasons why I made a compromise only once, and I will tell you the only compromise he made, when they wished that Nigeria's independence be postponed in order to create states, Awolowo looked at Zik and he knew that if he agreed for independence to be postponed because they wanted states created, Zik will use him like a dish rag across Nigeria. It's in that book. Zik will use him like a dish rag to wash the ground across Nigeria. Awolowo could not dare. He agreed with Zik that states would be created after independence. In my view, that was the only compromise Awolowo made. If you ask me, that was why he went to jail.
Here we go.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live. Stay tuned.
I think that this is a very interesting conversation, and I will not allow it to go without making this intervention. Number one, we have to let go of falsehood in Nigeria if we want to make progress. And there are fallacies that have continued to plague Nigeria. Number one of them is that we had a wonderful past and leaders who were honest and straightforward. And now the barbarians have come and they are eating at the barn. Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe was found guilty for diverting government money to fund ACB by Walter Sutton panel. That panel found him guilty, and Zik only pleaded political persecution. He diverted government money into ACB Bank, which was a private business of Zik. And this was a petition arising from an NCNC member, Mr. Eya, and Zik lost those shares. That's how ACB became a government bank. Chief Obafemi Awolowo in 1962, when Majekudumi set up a panel, Coca Commission of Inquiry into the affairs of certain parastatals in Western Nigeria, was described as running an ingenious scheme to divert government funds for private use. He was described as reckless and brazen in the way he diverted the funds of the Western Nigerian Marketing Board, which had about £6 million at the time Awolowo became premier. And by the time he left, they were in deficit of £2.something million. He was also found to have diverted government money to private individuals called the Nigerian National Investment Company, led by Chief Alfred Rewane, S.O. Badamosi, and other people, and two others, including Shoni Barre. And those loans given to the company, of the £6 million they got, only 500,000 was paid back. The rest was diverted to the Action Group. In his own book, My March Through Prison, Awolowo recounted in his own book that this was a plan they had to raise money using those companies and later convert those monies to the Action Group, because they had studied the Labour Party of Israel and found out that the Labour Party of Israel was a very rich party who had resources, and those resources made it possible for the party not to be controlled by rich individuals. Why was Awolowo looking for ways to fund UPA Action Group without the individuals? He was looking because by 1962, he had almost lost the party to the rich people. So why I'm giving you this background is that what happened in 2015 also happened in 1983. Chief Bola Ige took 2 million naira bribe from Great Nigerian Insurance Company to fund Action Group. He was found guilty by General Buhari's tribunal and went to prison. He was later granted pardon by General Babangida. So the question is, how do we go forward in Nigeria? Announcing catching the thieves will not solve the problem. We need to find out, how did our system fail so much that no civil servant has been known to come out to say, I did not allow Colonel Dasuki to transfer this money? How come no civil servant said so? How come the civil servants in the office of the NSA put the money together under a guise of supply of vehicles and transferred it to individual accounts? We need to go beyond catching the thief to finding out why our system failed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is really not a substantive contribution, but I see some dimensions, of non-sequitur, something that will regress into overgeneralization, building up. I thought the contribution of my brother Osita Chidoka was very, very solid, but it should be appreciated in the discussion with discernment. And my sense is that we should not try to wear lenses that are searching for saints when indeed we are searching for heroes. Heroes are sinners, but there are elements in their contributions that constitute the benchmarks that define the standard of their age and remain ideals that are sustained over time, and that's what makes them heroes. If you look into the lives of Abraham Lincoln, Winston Churchill, Martin Luther King, you'll be sorry about some of the untold stories about them. David was a murderer, but in the godly standard, he lived up to the ideal work, ideal standard that were worth canonizing in the scripture. Leaders of a generation are so called because they are discerning enough to be able to see into the seed of time and to see those ones that can germinate and are worth, reinvesting for the purpose of building the future. That they are failing, that the lives of Awolowo and Azikiwe had failing, did not make them any less heroes. It's just that they were not gods. If you read the wrong, if you as a Christian, for example, you read the wrong narratives, like the Da Vinci Code, you might as well be questioning whether Jesus was ever what the Bible claims it to be. I thank you very much.
Here we go.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live. Stay tuned.
The urban is essentially a Western Nigeria phenomenon. The Yorubas in the past lived in towns, but really since then it's been the rural, and they haven't had as much advantage of development as the urban area. Everybody knows an urban area must have roads, must have electricity, must have a number of things, but the rural area, for them to develop, actually also need those things. But as I said, because of how scattered they are, in different sizes, it was not always easy. And yet, if you don't develop them, they are the backbone of any country. I mean, if you want to industrialize, the raw material must come from the rural area. You must do something about making them feel part of development.
And if the rural area is not developed, the country remains in squalor?
Well, this country really would have problem developing.
So it was important for Awolowo to have a policy on rural development.
That's correct too.
And he termed it optimum community.
Okay, what happened was in the process, we had to write a paper for him and was talking about how to organize the rural area for effective production. And you discover that, in fact, if you move into the rural area, they are in groups, but nobody had attempted to use that grouping as the focus of development. Because the rural market, you know, they're not just all over the place without some rationality. There is a rationality to the way rural markets are developed. So what we then did was to say, let's organize the rural area into what was called an optimum community, which he then says it's an optimum strategy. And so it was from Awolowo that the concept of opticum as a strategy of development came up.
And that was foresight, right?
It was. You know, and many people still don't appreciate the fact that the rural area, in fact, to be able to service the urban area, because that's really what they do. If you're going to industrialize, your raw material must come from somewhere. Okay, if you don't pay attention to where that raw material will come from, after some time, you will have problems. If you don't put roads there, if you don't put improved facilities for the people to get to them.
So that's the problem we are witnessing today.
That is true too, yes, that we have neglected the basic infrastructure.
Is it not painful that in 1978, a leader thought it wise to come out with a policy that would develop the rural area more than 40 years after?
And we're still not there.
Is it not painful, sir?
It is. Well, you starting to talk about what makes a leader, because that's really what Nigeria hasn't had, a real leader who can see the totality of our problems, not just from the minuscule of our own area, but from the totality of the area he's meant to lead. And leadership is still the real thing that is very, it hasn't been real developed in Nigeria.
Awolowo did not win the election of 1979.
Yes.
And there was a plan already on the table.
Yeah.
That was what you took to our community.
Well, the truth was, Awolowo was used to fighting an election on the basis of what we call policy papers. Even the first action group government of Western Nigeria started with a whole series of what would we do if we won the election in forestry, in agriculture, in health, in what would we do?
And they were policy papers.
And they were policy papers. So when, for instance, he then won, and a person like Akinloye, you know Chief Adisa Akinloye, was in another party but joined the action group, and they were going to offer him the position of a Minister of Agriculture of Western Nigeria. He had to study that policy paper and make sure that what was in it becomes what he carried out. Okay, so when Awolowo was now thinking of going to the federal, he had to put together a number of us to provide for him policy papers, which, if he had won, would have become the basis of what government does in the rural area, in the urban area, and so on.
That means a leader must also learn to identify talents like Mabo Guje who could design policy papers.
Well, that's true. That's why you don't have to know him, but by the time you've consulted, you would find people from different parts of the country who can come together and give you a policy paper.
Here we go.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live. Stay tuned. In the global village of conflicting ideologies and complexities, understanding systems and schemes through awareness and social reconstruction becomes expedient.
They never told you how you offended them?
I'm not on trial, so I can't go before
Join the radio man, Edmond Obilo, on State Affairs for local and international politics, security, extensive economic analysis, interviews, and world power play.
Nigerians must choose the path they want to follow. Follow the same looters and sponsors of violence who control the political structures or encourage the formation of a new leadership team.
Be a global citizen and join the radio revolution on State Affairs. State Affairs with Edmond Obilo. Radio just got deeper.